If I don't wake up, save my baby first. Those were the last words anyone heard Ava Kensington say before the room filled with alarms, hurried footsteps, and a silence that felt heavier than fear itself. 48 hours. That was the number glowing on a monitor beside her hospital bed. 48 hours before doctors would be forced to make a decision no family should ever face. Ava lay motionless beneath crisp white sheets, 8 months pregnant, her chest rising and falling with the help of machines that seemed to know more about her future than anyone else in the room. Outside her door, nurses whispered. Inside, questions multiplied. Because the biggest mystery wasn't why Ava was unconscious. It was how a woman whose life looked perfect from the outside had ended up here at all. Just 3 days earlier, Ava had been photographed at a charity gala beside her husband, Ethan Caldwell, one of the most recognizable real estate investors in the state. The photos showed designer gowns, flashing cameras, and effortless smiles. The kind of images people scroll past online and quietly envy. But pictures only capture what people want you to see. They never capture what happens after the cameras disappear. At that very moment, while doctors monitored Ava and her unborn daughter, Ethan stood beneath crystal chandeliers at a private reception downtown. He accepted handshakes. He thanked guests for their concern. He repeated the same sentence over and over. It was a tragic accident. The words sounded polished. Practiced. Almost too practiced. Reporters nodded. Friends offered sympathy. Investors reassured him everything would be fine. Yet every time someone asked exactly what happened, Ethan's answer changed by a fraction. A different detail here. A missing minute there. Nothing obvious. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make the truth feel slippery. Back at St. Matthew's Medical Center, a storm rolled across the city skyline. Rain tapped softly against the windows of the intensive care wing. Ava's room remained quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of machines and the occasional movement of medical staff. Then something happened. A nurse noticed Ava's fingers twitch. Just once. Barely visible. She immediately called the attending physician. Within minutes, specialists crowded around the bed. Hope entered the room for the first time all night. But before anyone could celebrate, another discovery shifted everything. Ava had been clutching something when she arrived. Hospital staff assumed it was meaningless. A reflex. An accident. Yet after careful examination, they found a small silver key hidden in the folds of a blanket that had arrived with her. No one knew where it came from. No one knew what it unlocked. Most importantly, no one knew why Ava had held onto it so tightly. Across the country, 2 phones rang within minutes of each other. The first call reached Logan Kensington in Denver. The second reached Ryan Kensington in Chicago. The brothers hadn't spoken much in recent years. Life had taken them in different directions. But the moment they heard their sister's name, everything else stopped. Flights were booked. Meetings were canceled. Questions remained unanswered. By sunrise, both men would be on their way home. Neither of them knew that the silver key existed. Neither knew that Ethan Caldwell had already begun building a story for the public. And neither knew that somewhere beneath the polished image of wealth, influence, and success, a secret was waiting to be uncovered. A secret that could explain why Ava lay unconscious in a hospital bed while the man who promised to protect her seemed far more concerned with controlling the narrative than finding the truth. By the time Ethan Caldwell left the reception, the rain had become a steady curtain across the city. His driver opened the door of a black sedan, but Ethan did not get in immediately. He stood beneath the awning of the hotel, staring at the glow of downtown lights reflecting across wet pavement. To everyone watching, he looked like a worried husband carrying an impossible burden. Inside, however, a different concern kept pulling at his attention. It was not the hospital. It was not Ava. It was the silver key. 3 hours earlier, Ethan had received a text message from an unknown number. It contained only 6 words. They did not find the key. No signature. No explanation. The message vanished moments later, but Ethan had read it enough times to memorize every letter. Now, standing in the rain, he checked his phone again. Nothing. The sender was gone. Yet the message had achieved its purpose. For the first time in years, Ethan Caldwell looked genuinely nervous. The next morning, news outlets flooded social media with updates about Ava's condition. Photos of the couple appeared everywhere. Headlines described a tragic accident involving a wealthy businessman and his pregnant wife. Public sympathy poured in. Thousands of comments offered prayers and support. Most people accepted the story exactly as it was presented, but not everyone. At St. Matthew's Medical Center, a veteran nurse named Patricia Langley had worked emergency cases for more than 20 years. She had seen grief. She had seen guilt. She had seen families torn apart by tragedy. Something about Ethan bothered her. He visited the hospital twice that morning. Both times he spent more time speaking with attorneys and public relations advisors than he did sitting beside Ava's bed. He never touched her hand, never spoke to the baby, never asked whether her condition had improved. Patricia noticed details other people ignored. By noon, another strange event occurred. Hospital security reported that someone had attempted to access Ava's medical records using unauthorized credentials. The attempt failed, but the timing felt suspicious. Within minutes, administrators launched an internal review. No one knew who had tried to gain access. No one knew why. Meanwhile, nearly 1,000 miles away, Logan Kensington sat aboard a flight from Denver. He stared through the window as clouds rolled beneath the aircraft. His jaw remained tight the entire trip. The last time he had spoken to Ava was 2 weeks earlier. She had sounded different. Not frightened, not upset, just distracted. Before ending the call, she had said something unusual. "If anything ever feels wrong, promise me you will not ignore it." At the time, Logan laughed and asked what she meant. Ava changed the subject immediately. Now those words echoed in his mind. Across the aisle, a businessman watched a movie. A flight attendant offered coffee. Normal life continued around him while his sister lay unconscious hundreds of miles away. In Chicago, Ryan Kensington boarded a separate flight carrying only a briefcase and a growing sense of dread. Unlike Logan, Ryan believed answers always existed. Every mystery left evidence. Every lie created cracks. The challenge was knowing where to look. As his plane climbed into the sky, he opened a notebook and wrote 3 questions. What happened to Ava? Why was Ethan afraid of the key? And who sent the text message? Back at the hospital, another small change occurred. Ava's fingers moved again, this time longer, stronger. A doctor immediately documented the response. The room filled with cautious optimism. But before anyone could celebrate, a nurse discovered something tucked inside Ava's personal belongings. It was a folded receipt dated 2 days before the incident. On its surface, nothing seemed remarkable. Yet written across the back in Ava's handwriting were 5 words that changed everything. Do not trust Victoria Hayes. The moment Logan stepped into Ava's hospital room, he stopped breathing for a second. Not because of the machines. Not because of the doctors. Because his sister looked smaller than he remembered. Ava had always been the strongest person in the family. She was the one who called on birthdays. The one who remembered anniversaries. The one who somehow held everyone together even after their parents passed away. Seeing her silent beneath hospital lights felt wrong, like walking into a church and finding the altar missing. Ryan arrived 20 minutes later carrying only his briefcase and a folder already packed with notes. The brothers exchanged a glance. No greeting. No small talk. They were thinking the same thing. Something about this story did not add up. A doctor updated them on Ava's condition. Stable. Unchanged. The baby remained strong. That should have been good news. Yet neither brother felt relieved. After the doctor left, Logan noticed Ethan standing near the window. The millionaire looked exhausted, but his exhaustion seemed carefully arranged, like part of a performance. Ethan stepped forward and offered condolences that sounded rehearsed. He spoke about the accident, about bad luck, about how quickly everything had happened. Ryan listened quietly. Then he asked a simple question. What floor of the house were you on when it happened? Ethan blinked. The answer came half a second too late. My office. Ryan nodded. Nothing more. But he noticed. Good lawyers notice delays. They noticed missing details. They noticed when a person answered the question they wished had been asked instead of the one they actually heard. Before leaving, Ethan promised full cooperation and handed Ryan his business card. The moment he walked out, Logan turned toward his brother. You do not believe him. Ryan slipped the card into his pocket. No, and neither do you. Later that afternoon, the brothers were given Ava's personal belongings. Most items were ordinary. A purse, a phone with a damaged screen, a notebook, a few receipts. Then they found the note mentioning Victoria Hayes. Logan read the 5 words twice. Ryan read them 3 times. Neither spoke immediately. Victoria Hayes was not a stranger. She worked for Ethan's company. Public records described her as a senior marketing executive. Successful, trusted, respected. Yet Ava had specifically written those words shortly before ending up in a hospital bed. That could not be ignored. Ryan opened Ava's phone. Most recent messages were inaccessible due to security settings. However, several notifications remained visible on the lock screen. One caught his attention immediately. A calendar reminder scheduled 2 days earlier. Meeting with V, private. Do not tell Ethan. Logan stared at the screen. Who keeps secrets from their husband? Ryan answered without looking up. Someone who discovered something important. Across town, Ethan sat inside his office on the 38th floor of Caldwell Development Group. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Normally the view calmed him. Today it only reminded him how exposed he felt. His phone rang. The caller identification displayed a familiar name. Victoria Hayes. Ethan answered immediately. Her voice sounded strained. The brothers are here. Ethan walked toward the window. I know. A long silence followed. Then Victoria asked the question neither wanted to discuss. Did they find anything? Ethan looked at the skyline disappearing beneath dark clouds. Not yet. He ended the call and stared at his reflection in the glass. For the first time, uncertainty appeared behind his eyes. Back at the hospital, Ryan unlocked another section of Ava's phone using information only family members would know. Hundreds of photos appeared. Most were ordinary snapshots of daily life. Then he found an image taken 6 days before the incident. A photograph of a storage unit rental agreement. Unit 417. Downtown Storage Center. The contract listed Ava as the sole authorized user. Logan frowned. Why would she rent a storage unit without telling anyone? Ryan zoomed in on the image. At the bottom of the contract was a handwritten note. 1 sentence. 7 words. If anything happens, everything is inside. The storage facility sat between an auto repair shop and a discount furniture warehouse on the edge of downtown. Nothing about it looked important. That was exactly what worried Ryan. People did not hide life-changing secrets inside places designed to be forgotten. The brothers arrived just after sunrise. A cold wind moved through the nearly empty parking lot as Logan studied the rows of metal doors stretching across the property. Unit 417 was located near the back corner, away from security offices and public traffic. Ava had chosen it carefully. Ryan showed identification and completed the necessary paperwork to gain emergency access as a next of kin. 20 minutes later, they stood in front of the gray metal door. Neither spoke. Ryan inserted the key they had recovered from the hospital. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lock clicked. Logan slowly pulled the door upward. Both men expected boxes. Maybe documents. Instead, they found an entire hidden archive. Plastic containers lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Every box was labeled in Ava's handwriting. Financial records, emails, property transfers, personal notes, security backups. Logan stared in disbelief. This was not random storage. This was preparation. Ava had been building a case. Ryan opened the nearest container. Inside were folders organized by date. The first document he removed immediately changed the atmosphere. It was a copy of an internal company transfer from Caldwell Development Group. The amount exceeded $4 million. The destination account belonged to a consulting firm neither brother recognized. Ryan checked the signature authorization. Victoria Hayes. A second folder contained dozens of similar transactions. Different dates. Different amounts. Same names. Same pattern. Someone had been moving money quietly for years. Logan continued searching through the containers. Several held printed emails. Others contained photographs. Then he discovered a sealed envelope marked with a warning written in thick black marker. If I am wrong, destroy this. If I am right, keep digging. Logan looked at Ryan before opening it. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten letter from Ava. The letter was dated 6 weeks earlier. Ryan began reading aloud. If you are reading this, something has happened sooner than I expected. Ethan is hiding something. I cannot prove everything yet, but I know Victoria is helping him. They think I stopped paying attention. They are wrong. The brothers exchanged a look. Ava had not been confused. She had not been paranoid. She had been investigating. The letter continued. 3 months ago, I discovered financial records that did not match company reports. At first, I assumed it was an accounting error. Then I found properties purchased under shell companies connected to Ethan. Every time I got close to answers, documents disappeared. Someone was cleaning up behind me. Ryan folded the letter carefully. The room suddenly felt smaller. Everything they had been told about the accident seemed less believable by the minute. Then Logan plugged the flash drive into his laptop. Hundreds of files appeared instantly. Video clips, scanned contracts, audio recordings. Most were encrypted, but one file opened immediately. The timestamp showed it had been recorded 9 days earlier. Ava appeared on the screen, sitting inside her car. She looked exhausted but determined. She glanced over her shoulder before speaking directly into the camera. "If you are seeing this, I was right to be afraid. Ethan does not know I found the accounts. Victoria does not know I copied the records. But they know I am asking questions. If anything happens to me, do not believe the first explanation you hear." The recording ended abruptly. Silence filled the storage unit. Then Ryan noticed something hidden beneath the video file. A folder named Witness. Inside was a single photograph. The image showed Ethan and Victoria meeting privately at a lakeside restaurant. Across from them sat a third person. Logan leaned closer to the screen. Neither brother recognized the man. But written beneath the photograph in Ava's handwriting were 4 words that sent a chill through both of them. "He knows everything too." The photograph refused to leave Ryan's mind. He studied it again while sitting inside a quiet corner of the hospital cafeteria. Ethan looked relaxed. Victoria looked confident. The unidentified man looked uncomfortable, as if he knew he should not have been there. Ava had written only 4 words beneath the image, yet those words carried more weight than any financial record they had uncovered so far. He knows everything too. The question was simple. Who was he? The answer proved far more difficult. Logan contacted a private investigator he trusted from his years in Denver. Within hours, facial recognition software produced a possible match. The man in the photograph was named Daniel Mercer, 48 years old, former financial auditor, previously employed by a consulting firm connected to several Caldwell development projects. 3 years earlier, he had resigned unexpectedly and disappeared from public business records. That alone would have been interesting. What came next was alarming. Daniel Mercer had received a payment of $800,000 less than 2 weeks before leaving his position. The money had originated from one of the same shell companies Ava documented inside the storage unit. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Every answer was creating 3 new questions. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell spent the afternoon inside a conference room surrounded by attorneys. The atmosphere was tense. One lawyer explained that reporters were beginning to ask about irregular financial transfers. Another warned that social media speculation was growing. Ethan listened without interruption. Then he asked only one question. "Has anyone spoken to Daniel?" Silence followed. No one answered immediately. That told Ethan everything he needed to know. Across town, Victoria Hayes sat alone in her condominium, staring at a glass of untouched water. She had not slept properly in days. Every news update about Ava increased her anxiety. Every phone call from Ethan made it worse. She opened her laptop and reread an email she had saved months earlier. The subject line simply read insurance. Attached were financial spreadsheets and property records she had never fully understood. At the time, she assumed Ethan was protecting company assets. Now she was no longer certain. Her phone buzzed. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. She let it ring. At St. Matthew's Medical Center, another unexpected development occurred. A hospital administrator informed Ryan that someone had returned asking about Ava's personal belongings. The visitor claimed to be a family representative. The problem was that no such representative existed. Security cameras captured the individual entering the lobby. Baseball cap, dark jacket, sunglasses. The face remained partially hidden. Yet Ryan noticed something immediately. The visitor walked with purpose. Not like a stranger searching for information. Like someone searching for a specific item. Specifically, something they feared had already been found. Logan arrived minutes later. Together, they reviewed the footage frame by frame. Then the image froze. The visitor briefly turned toward the camera near the exit. For less than 1 second, part of his face became visible. Logan narrowed his eyes. He had seen the man before. Not in person. In a photograph. The same photograph Ava stored inside Unit 417. The visitor was Daniel Mercer. Before the brothers could react, Ryan's phone vibrated. It was an incoming text from an unknown number. No greeting. No explanation. Just a single message. "Stop looking for Daniel Mercer if you want your sister to survive." Attached beneath the warning was a photograph taken less than 10 minutes earlier. It showed Ava's hospital room. Someone was watching. Ryan read the message 3 times before handing the phone to Logan. Neither brother spoke immediately. The photograph attached to the warning was impossible to dismiss. It had been taken from inside the hospital, not from a hallway, not through a window. Someone had been close enough to capture details that should have been visible only to medical staff and immediate family. Ava's bed, the heart monitor, even the blanket folded near her feet. Whoever sent the message wanted them to understand one thing. They were being watched. Logan's first call was to hospital security. Within 20 minutes, administrators were reviewing surveillance footage from every entrance, elevator, and restricted corridor. The search uncovered something troubling. During the previous 48 hours, several temporary maintenance workers had entered areas near Ava's floor. Their identification records appeared legitimate. Their faces did not. 2 names belonged to real contractors who had never actually visited the hospital. Someone had created false credentials. The discovery transformed concern into urgency. Meanwhile, Ryan focused on the sender. The text had been routed through multiple encrypted services, making it nearly impossible to trace. Almost impossible. Ryan knew people, former investigators, digital forensic specialists, professionals who enjoyed solving puzzles that other people considered unsolvable. By late afternoon, one of those specialists returned his call. The message originated from a prepaid device activated only 3 days earlier. The device had already been discarded. However, one detail stood out. Before sending the warning, the phone connected briefly to a wireless network registered to Caldwell Development Group. Ryan stared at the report in silence. The connection lasted only 27 seconds, but it was enough. Someone linked to Ethan's business had access to information they should not possess. Across town, Ethan attempted to continue life as normal. He attended meetings, reviewed contracts, signed documents. Yet every conversation felt distant. His attention remained fixed on a single concern: the storage unit. He did not know what Ava had placed there. He only knew she had become increasingly secretive during the months before the incident. Twice she had canceled dinner plans unexpectedly. Once she spent an entire weekend claiming she needed time alone. At the time, Ethan assumed she was emotional and overwhelmed by the pregnancy. Now he feared something else entirely. What if she had discovered more than he realized? His office door opened. Victoria entered without knocking. Ethan immediately noticed the tension in her expression. "They found Daniel," she said quietly. Ethan looked up. "Are you sure?" Victoria nodded. "Hospital security footage. Someone leaked information." For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Ethan stood and walked toward the window. The city stretched beneath them in perfect order. Traffic lights changed. People crossed streets. Businesses opened and closed. Everything appeared normal. Yet his world felt increasingly unstable. "Find him first," Ethan said. "Before they do." Back at the hospital, Logan remained beside Ava's bed long after visiting hours ended. Rain tapped softly against the glass while machines continued their steady rhythm. He watched his sister carefully, searching for any sign of movement, any indication she could hear him. Finally, he leaned closer. "You always hated secrets," he whispered. "So whatever you found, I promise we are going to finish it." Moments later, something changed. A nurse entered carrying updated test results. She smiled before speaking. It was the first genuine smile anyone had seen in days. Ava's neurological activity had increased significantly. The improvement was small but measurable. Hope returned to the room. Then the nurse noticed something else. Ava's right hand had shifted position. Her fingers were no longer curled. They rested against the bed rail. Clutched between them was a tiny folded piece of paper no one had seen before. Logan carefully opened it. Inside, written in shaky handwriting that looked unmistakably like Ava's, were 3 words. Daniel was coming clean. Logan read the note twice before looking at Ryan. Neither brother could explain how it appeared. Nurses insisted the paper had not been there earlier. Doctors could not account for it. Yet the handwriting matched Ava's notes from the storage unit almost perfectly. Daniel was coming clean. 3 words. 3 words that transformed a mystery into a countdown. Somewhere in the city, a man who supposedly knew everything was preparing to talk. The question was whether he would reach them first. Ryan immediately began searching for any recent activity connected to Daniel Mercer. Credit card records showed nothing. Public databases revealed nothing. It was as if the former auditor had spent years erasing himself from existence. Then, just after midnight, a break finally arrived. Logan's private investigator called from Denver. A traffic camera located 20 miles outside the city had captured Daniel's vehicle less than 12 hours earlier. The image was grainy but clear enough to identify the license plate. More importantly, it revealed where he was headed. Daniel had checked into a roadside motel near Lake Harrison under an assumed name. Ryan booked a rental car within minutes. By sunrise, the brothers were driving north through steady rain. Neither spoke much during the trip. Every mile increased the pressure. If Daniel truly intended to reveal what he knew, someone else was probably looking for him too. Back in the city, Ethan Caldwell arrived at his office before dawn. He had not slept. Reports covered his desk. Legal updates filled his inbox. Investors demanded reassurance. Yet none of that mattered compared to the message he received at 6:14 that morning. Daniel is missing. Ethan stared at the screen. Missing was not the word he wanted to see. Missing meant unpredictable. Missing meant risk. Missing meant secrets beyond his control. Across town, Victoria Hay sat inside her condominium watching local news coverage of Ava's condition. For days she had convinced herself everything would settle down. The investigation would fade. The questions would stop. Instead, every hour seemed to create new problems. Then her phone rang. An unfamiliar number appeared. She almost ignored it. Almost. Something made her answer. The voice on the other end spoke only one sentence. They found the storage unit. The line disconnected immediately. Victoria felt the color leave her face. At Lake Harrison, Logan and Ryan finally reached the motel shortly after 10 o'clock. The property looked forgotten by time. Peeling paint. Empty parking spaces. A flickering vacancy sign. The manager confirmed Daniel had rented a room 3 nights earlier. Yes, he was still there. No, he had not checked out. Relief washed over both brothers. For the first time in days, they felt close to an answer. The manager handed over a room number. Logan and Ryan walked quickly down the outdoor corridor. Rain tapped softly against metal railings. Room 214 stood at the far end. Logan knocked once. No response. He knocked again. Silence. Ryan exchanged a glance with his brother before trying the handle. The door opened. The room was empty. The bed remained neatly made. The television was off. No luggage. No clothing. Nothing except a single envelope resting on the small desk beside the window. Ryan opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter addressed to Ava. Beneath the letter sat a flash drive and a photograph. The picture showed Ethan Caldwell standing beside a private airplane. Next to him was a man neither brother recognized. On the back, Daniel had written a final message. If you are reading this, I am already gone. Open the flash drive before Ethan learns who else was involved. Ryan inserted the flash drive into his laptop before the motel room door had fully closed. Neither brother wanted to wait. Too many people had already tried to hide the truth. Too many clues had appeared only to disappear again. The drive contained dozens of files, but one folder stood apart from the rest. Its title was simple. Final Statement. Ryan opened it immediately. A video appeared on the screen. Daniel Mercer looked older than in the photograph. Tired. Nervous. The kind of man who had spent years carrying something he could no longer live with. He looked directly into the camera. My name is Daniel Mercer. If this recording is being viewed, I have chosen to tell the truth. Logan folded his arms and listened carefully. Daniel explained that years earlier he had been hired to review financial transactions connected to several development projects. At first, everything appeared normal. Then he discovered properties purchased through hidden companies and funds transferred through layers of accounts designed to conceal ownership. According to Daniel, the purpose was not merely to save taxes or protect investments. It was to move money without attracting attention. Daniel admitted he should have reported what he found. Instead, he accepted a settlement and walked away. The decision haunted him for years. Then the video became even more alarming. Daniel revealed that Ava had contacted him 4 months earlier. She had independently uncovered records matching the same transactions. Unlike him, she refused to ignore them. She asked questions. She requested documents. She kept digging. Daniel described her as relentless. The more she learned, the more determined she became. Then he said something neither brother expected. Ava was never the target. The real danger was what she discovered. Ryan paused the video. The room fell silent. Logan stared at the screen. What does that mean? Ryan continued playing. Daniel explained that the financial network involved more than Ethan and Victoria. Several influential individuals had participated. Some were business partners. Others held positions capable of protecting the operation from scrutiny. The unidentified man from the lakeside restaurant was named Charles Whitaker, a private aviation consultant responsible for arranging transportation linked to confidential transactions. The photograph beside Ethan's airplane suddenly made sense. The plane was not just transportation. It connected people, meetings, and money. Daniel ended his statement with a warning. If Ava's evidence becomes public, powerful people will lose everything. That is why they are afraid. Back in the city, events were moving quickly. News organizations had begun asking difficult questions about Caldwell Development Group. Anonymous sources leaked financial records. Investors demanded explanations. Reporters camped outside corporate offices. For the first time, Ethan's carefully controlled image showed signs of cracking. Yet the biggest shock arrived that evening at St. Matthew's Medical Center. Logan and Ryan had barely returned when a nurse rushed into the waiting area searching for family members. Both brothers stood instantly. The nurse was smiling through tears. She opened her eyes. The words hit them like lightning. They ran toward Ava's room. Doctors moved aside as the brothers entered. Ava looked weak, exhausted, but she was awake. For several seconds, she simply stared at them, as though reconnecting pieces of a life interrupted. Logan took her hand. Ryan stood beside him. Neither knew what to say. Then Ava spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Just 4 words. 4 words that changed everything. Check Ethan's private safe. The room went silent. Even the doctors stopped moving. Ava closed her eyes again, exhausted from the effort. But before sleep carried her away, she added one final sentence. That is where he hid the list. The safe was hidden behind a framed architectural blueprint inside Ethan Caldwell's private office. By the time legal investigators obtained access, the story had already begun unraveling in public. News outlets were reporting financial irregularities. Investors were demanding answers. Former associates were suddenly eager to cooperate, but none of them knew about the list. Ryan stood beside federal investigators as the safe door finally opened. Inside were passports, property deeds, encrypted drives, and a single black notebook. The notebook contained names. Dozens of them. Business executives, consultants, account managers, intermediaries. Every person connected to the hidden network Daniel Mercer had described. Beside each name were dates, account references, and handwritten notes. It was not just evidence. It was a roadmap. Within days, subpoenas followed. Interviews multiplied. Several individuals attempted to distance themselves from the operation. Others blamed one another. The carefully constructed wall of silence collapsed faster than anyone expected. Meanwhile, Ethan watched everything from a conference room surrounded by attorneys. For years, he had controlled every conversation, every narrative, every outcome. Now he was reacting instead of directing. Every morning brought another headline. Every afternoon revealed another document. Every evening introduced another witness. The empire that had taken decades to build seemed to be shrinking by the hour. Victoria Hayes eventually made a decision of her own. Faced with overwhelming evidence and growing legal pressure, she agreed to cooperate. Her testimony confirmed details that investigators had struggled to verify. Financial transfers, hidden partnerships, private meetings. The pieces finally fit together. Yet none of those developments mattered as much to Logan and Ryan as what was happening inside St. Matthew's Medical Center. Ava continued recovering. Slowly, painfully, but steadily. Each day she spent a little more time awake. Each day she spoke a little more clearly. And each day she moved closer to meeting the daughter she had fought so hard to protect. 3 weeks after opening her eyes, Ava was finally wheeled into the neonatal care unit. The room felt impossibly quiet. Nurses smiled as they guided her toward a small crib. Inside, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, lay baby Grace. Ava stared for several seconds before tears filled her eyes. Logan stood behind her, Ryan beside him. Neither brother said a word. They did not need to. The moment spoke for itself. Grace opened her tiny eyes and stretched one hand toward her mother. Ava laughed through tears. It was the first genuine laugh anyone had heard from her in months. Outside the hospital, life continued moving forward. Investigations expanded. Court proceedings followed. Business partnerships dissolved. Assets changed hands. The names inside the black notebook became public record. The truth Ava had worked so hard to uncover could no longer be hidden. 1 year later, the The city looked exactly the same. The skyline remained unchanged. Traffic still filled the streets. People still hurried between meetings and appointments. Yet for the Kensington family, everything was different. On a bright spring afternoon, Ava sat in a park overlooking the river. Grace had just celebrated her first birthday. The little girl laughed as Logan pushed her gently on a swing, while Ryan pretended to lose a race across the grass. For the first time in a very long time, there were no secrets left to chase. No mysteries left to solve. Only peace. Ava watched her daughter and smiled. She remembered hospital lights, unanswered questions, long nights filled with uncertainty. She remembered wondering whether justice would ever arrive. It had. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But truth had a way of surviving. Eventually, it found daylight. Grace's laughter echoed across the park as sunlight reflected off the river behind them. Ava lifted her daughter into her arms and held her close. Some people spend their lives protecting fortunes. Others spend their lives protecting what truly matters. In the end, only one of those things lasts.